Marcus and Millichap, thank you for Marcus and Millichap putting this video together, and
Yeah.
John Chang, we're meaningfully adding value. So
I agree.
Hey, everyone.
See, here's,
Keep your eyes on the horizon.
and you can just pause it there.
I
I mean,
end
that's
my
like
videos with that line.
that's just like
every
everything
week. But
in this whole video.
So, okay, we're only going to listen to the first 17 seconds of the 4-minute video. So keep our eyes on the horizon is what John Chang
Yeah,
is saying.
yeah.
So can you summarize the rest of what John Chang says?
No, we definitely covered the, kind of the instability of the current moment. Again, the title of this is "As Uncertainty Rises, Stability of CRE Stands Out." What I thought was most interesting about this, as a data point, is he cites the Economic Policy Uncertainty Index, and this is okay. So we see it right here in the video, and I actually have the figure there in a separate tab. And it shows that, economic policy uncertainty has increased, you could say, pretty dramatically since bottoming out at around October or September, of last year. But it's not necessarily as high as one may think. If you go to the max now, if you click on the max there, we are the highest that it's been in the near
COVID.
future, but there's a little bit of, one should be pretty chastened. It's not like we're not in an emergency situation. We're just in a situation where it's definitely elevated. I think part of it is because of election, a recent election, and the other part is this is how it's kind of been for a little bit. We were extremely uncertain during the pandemic. I think that what really does look like is we were at a period of uncertainty last year. All of 2024, this index was slightly lower, and then now it's kind of jumping up. The real upshot, though, is that this is a very volatile metric here, and there's lots of jumping up and jumping down, and we'll have to see maybe in the next couple of months if things start to settle down.
Just curious, I was like, okay, what was going on in September? Obviously, the election was in November, which actually uncertainty decreased. And
do you remember
this
that?
summarizes, 100%. So September 10th was the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
Oh yeah.
I think politics is driving all this. I mean,
Yeah.
what bigger input besides all the individual inputs that everybody makes in the economy, but what other bigger effect that someone can try to underwrite and leads to at least emotions is who's going to be in charge of making fiscal policy or executing fiscal policy in a change, and that's obviously the presidency. And I don't think there's any doubt that it bottomed out prior thing, because remember it was Brat summer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Brat summer, so everyone was thinking that all is good. The
Uncertainty.
we're gonna have. Again, I'm just paraphrasing what others were thinking, but okay, well, it'll be another 4 years of Democratic control, basically the same thing, and it'll just be kind of the status quo. All right, again, we're looking at the uncertainty index, not the is this good or bad, but just there's some idea of predictability of all right, I think Kamala Harris is going to be elected, but then all of a sudden the debate happened and things started slipping away, and then you had whether it was Donald Trump going on Joe Rogan or whatever, the reason for the ramp up in support, but just more confidence of okay, actually this guy might actually win, and then it dropped because everyone was so hopeful that all right, we're going to have deregulation, we're going to have lower taxes, all this stuff that seemed like automatic, but then it's not so automatic, and it's the tariffs and it's the deportations and it's whatever else is whatever noise is being put in the system. Not that that much fundamentally I think has really certainly there's a lot of details and personnel and controversies, but that's what else has changed? What else is driving this?
Yeah,
I mean, the 10-year Treasury.
I agree. I think that
10-year Treasury would be. I'm going to look at one more.
Pull it up. No, I think that some of this is just the regime change, right? But there are specific policies that I'm sorry, not a little, probably dramatically different than previous administrations, and so there's going to be some coping, and this story is just starting to be told. I will I will say that this is a theme that is repeated in multiple sources that we're going through today. So it's not just this Marcus and Millichap. We see notes of it in Fannie Mae and John Burns today. But the overall point is like people just don't know what to expect, and I think that the biggest category for all of them is the idea of tariffs. Interestingly, like there is a small note on immigration and stuff, but from what I've heard, actually the immigration numbers are not too much different materially. There may be some flashy headlines, but we'll have to see. Like some of this immigration stuff is very dramatic, and frankly, like I don't know what to make of it. But when you're talking about tariffs, that seems like a broad consensus amongst the commercial real estate sources that tariffs aren't going to be great, especially on the construction side.
Sorry, I messed up making this graph real quick on the fly. I'm just going to look at what the 10-year Treasury was in September.
So with the redesigned Fred website, what they do is you add a second line, and sometimes it gives you a scatter plot instead of a line, which is cool, but it's not it's not the same as it used to be. Plus, I do like the color scheme of before. It's a little bit now I'm just nostalgic for the old Fred website. Maybe there's a click I can go to the old version.
Oh, that'd be nice. So we say politics, but what's the real driver?
Yeah, well, as an
that's a day for day. That's a day for day bottoming of.
Yeah, totally. Think about the 10-year as an expression of uncertainty, or uncertainty as a reflection of a 10-year. Either one. But
you're right.
It's totally that totally makes sense.
You are right.
Wow,
you are right.
It's crazy.
It's on the day.
Yeah,
they both bought on the same day.
So
coincidence.
Just to flesh this out a little bit, Spencer is pointing out how on September 16th, both the uncertainty gauge and the 10-year Treasury yield bottomed out, and they follow almost exactly the same path of increasing through until today. So wow, that's fun. That's a fun little thing.
And again, I think it was fascinating when we learned this 2 years ago, that you would think that movements in the 10-year Treasury or even the Fed funds rate would would be more pronounced in the investor class, or people who are transacting based on yields and spreads.
Yeah.
We think about it every day because it's, what relative to cap rates or it's the cost of capital. But someone that's like a, stay-at-home mom buying, groceries, or just somebody working whatever job that's not looking at the 10-year Treasury every day, it still somehow seeps into that psyche.
Because they're feeling it. And I think one of the big things, and I looked this up a little bit, credit card delinquencies are tapering off a little bit. They spiked a couple quarters ago, or they hit a peak a couple quarters ago. But I think that people are also dealing with consistent high interest rates, and their credit card bills are just getting tougher and tougher to pay off. Credit card consumption, or consumption in general, has not really changed that much. But if all things are the same and the only thing's different is interest rate, suddenly now it's just tougher. You just can't, every month now you can't pay off that credit card bill, and that's something that can kind of snowball and be a little bit of a lagging effect where that takes a little bit to build, and maybe all these lagging effects aren't going to come to a head, but I think that there still is consistent pain that's caused every day that interest rates remain this high, and the economy really kind of hasn't yet completely adjusted, as crazy it may sound, after 18 months, 2 years of high interest rates. So that's one thing that I do think is I think the labor market, I took a couple looks at it yesterday when we were putting together this recent report that I just teased. The labor market doesn't seem as scary as I maybe thought it was now, but I still am thinking man, could consumption collapse? There's just so many big question marks.
Well, in the labor market's typically like a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
It's the labor market. If you look at past recessions, it can be incredible.
Yeah, you're right.
One day and then it's gone the next.
Yeah.
But I don't think all of the reshuffling of the federal workforce, that's relatively kind of small potatoes given the entire overall employment.
I agree with that too, and because there's a lot. It does seem like every jobs report we hear, everyone's like, yeah, but the jobs were so much government jobs. Well, there's still jobs, even if they're government jobs, are still. And so we may not see it in the March jobs report. We may actually see it in the April jobs report. Any effects? Now this is something that I'm cribbing from another source I heard. Any effects of these labor market reductions within the government.
Yeah.
So that will be interesting. But by that time, maybe we'll figure out what rules are allowed to be broken, what rules are allowed to hold firm, what can be predictable and not predictable. This is still like a month into a new administration, and I hope that uncertainty will decrease as we figure out, what the administration is allowed to, not allowed to, whether what they really want versus what they're negotiating. I'm hoping time will allow us this clarity, but at the very least, people are expecting the uncertainty now, so they are in it.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. It'll be interesting to see how much they'll be able to get accomplished and what exactly they try to actually get accomplished.
Yeah.
Before any. I mean, you can do a lot through the executive branch, but you need Congress to do the majority of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And if you wrote in on wave of support, but you lose that support.
A lot of people in the past 4 weeks have become a lot more educated about the Impoundment Act and various ways of spending and rules on the executive and legislative branch.
Let me ask you this, Matt. If you get a letter, if you get an email from me,
yeah,
saying, "Hey, Matt,"
I thought about that.
Matt, can you what did you do? What did you do last week? Just 5 bullet points of what you did. That's just one thing a day.
Yeah. Oh,
is that what would your reaction be?
I'd list the 5 points.
You just list the 5 points.
5 points. I know it's the idea and the principle and stuff, but like I would list it, and if I was in a bad mood, I would go gung ho and list like every little thing I did and be like, hey, look at me, I'm working.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well, it's the interesting, just the polar opinions of that. On one hand, it's like, this is like not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, like just asking employees and civil servants of like, hey, what did we get accomplished this week? Like that seems totally reasonable. I think it's the tone in which that it's done, and like the way in which, and like the no heads up, and just like assuming you're not getting anything done. I think people are feeling a little bit disrespected. But then back to the other side, there's been like seemingly not a ton of accountability for a long time, and the whole point was to shake things up, and that's what kind of it looks like. But it's just interesting, just the different opinions on the reactions to some pretty simple things.
Yeah.
But then anyway, let's get back to multifamilies. Politics.
I was about to say, some guy in Washington may not know, but Jimmy, in the back room, he knows where all the secrets are. So one email, just talk, that's what I think is like, you can talk to someone inside. There may be a bureaucrat that knows a whole lot about where the waste is instead of kind of controlling it. But,
well, on an individual basis, everyone talks about, it's so clear where the waste is here or there, but then you can't actually get to it. And then we're going to stop talking about politics sort of. But again, if you're not willing to talk about entitlements at all, we're not having a serious conversation. I'll leave it at that.